Hello, something guys and gals, this is Something Guy 912. In spite of my sporadic musings about the game, I am quite the consistent and avid player of Team Fortress 2, going as far back as when my dad had gotten a physical copy of the Orange Box back in 2007. However, I find it more difficult to play Team Fortress 2 as the years wore on, what with the bot infestation that has plagued the game ever since the source leak for the game's engine came about and bot hosters were rife to exploit the holes present in it. This, of course, culminated in what was the hashtag Save TF2 event back in 2022 and what is now currently the hashtag Fix TF2 campaign, with various YouTubers from Team Fortress 2 and beyond putting Valve to task on their gross negligence of not only their legacy titles, but also of their more recent affairs. While the title of this video may have you believe that I want to be a contrarian asshole and see this game die by attrition, I have expressed my support of this campaign in other forms of media, even if I do have some doubts about it succeeding. Why is that? Well, let's elaborate a bit on how this all got kicked off to begin with. So Zesty Jesus, a controversial TF2ber at least in the eyes of some, made a video exposing the exaggerated longevity and growth of TF2's player base at length, knowing that while the cheater bots only make a small fraction of the entire span of bots present, that in contrast to the number of real players feels too abundant to realistically handle. He further vindicated this with a follow-up video, and from the exposure of the former, prior sticklers to Zesty Jesus like Shork, Solarite, and Big Joey saw fit to put their 2 cents in to call out this ambivalence of Valve wanting to put the game on cosmetic crate life support, while unwilling to either kill or resuscitate this dinosaur for good. I am not here to state that with Shork being the head honcho behind this current movement, that it is doomed to fail because of his prior refusal to stick Valve's face in their shit, but given his butting of heads with Zesty Jesus, only to now suddenly take this revelation to kickstart this campaign once more, does lead me to believe he now optically can be more critical of Valve. But that's not why I think this campaign won't work, because you see, the 2 prongs of attack for this campaign is to not support the game financially, and to sign a petition via their save.tf site. The latter may work if Valve are even remotely aware of these petitions and who is signing them, which, given the glad-handed way they dusted off the old TF2 Twitter handle, is unlikely, but the former is especially inconceivable because of the aforementioned bots. Back to Zesty's bot vid, he claimed that the biggest portion of these bots are idle bots, those who mainly sit dead in private servers to rack up either crates or items whenever a cosmetic-themed update comes around. With this in mind, the majority of Valve's profits through TF2 come from the bots themselves, putting upon me a extremely bleak and stark revelation about all of this. If you aren't ready for this black pill I'm shoving down your throat, breathe and ready yourselves. What if Valve won't deal with the bot problem because, with as systemic as this bot crisis is, that they need them more than they need us? If the inflated success of the summer 2023 update is anything to go by, that might sting more true than anyone would be willing to admit. That for as much public hoo-ha that the community can muster about the influx of bots in this server, Valve doubtless wants us to continue to ensure TF2 is profitable, even knowing how badly this looks on them. So even if the entire 25 to 30,000 of its real players were to drop the game and drop any money on it, the other 50 to 70,000 bots who would grind away regardless will make up the potential losses. Valve obviously won't shut down the service just because TF2 has been out of vogue for them, but not in spite of its consistent player base, but because of the consistent bump of bots that make their quarterly reports justify them continuing to let the servers up. And at that point, one has to ask the daunting question, is TF2 even worth saving at this point? This thought of mine came up when I had watched a podcast by the name of Under Further Review, where Zesty Jesus and a compatriot of Shorks named Wheezy discussed the tactics of boycotting the game. Wheezy arguing that a financial boycott wouldn't work because of Valve's willingness to let the game stagnate and effectively lose money for Valve in comparison to Counter-Strike 2 or Dota 2. While I find this argument cogent, I find it cogent for reasons Wheezy doesn't outline. that the trade-off of Valve ridding the bots for good would be a huge net loss of profit on their part, with no assurance they would necessarily recover those profits from the goodwill they made to the player base. Of course, there are other reasons Valve would have difficulty affording this outcome, whether that is to implement a more robust anti-cheat system or to scrub their DRM system with more obstacles to entry to make an account on there, but I think the immediate profit margin is the biggest hurdle that looms their decision of inaction on this matter. As doomer as this entire video may seem, there are optical reasons Valve wouldn't want this to continue beyond just the profits, as the bad rep of Team Fortress 2 will have a knock-on effect of their future titles, including their mobile title, Deadlock, that aims to maximize on the very live service aspects that TF2 pioneered and is currently infested with as a result, or how Valve's supposedly squeaky clean reputation as a whole has skeletons in its closet it's not willing to disclose, destroying the confidence of those to touch any of their products if this is how they treat them well beyond they've been dried of worth. But at the same time, it cannot be overstated that with TF2 having been dried of its worth, that Valve only treats this dead plant as a reluctant obligation of theirs, and so too does that stretch to the vassals of TF2bers, holding out hope of an oasis somewhere in this desert of a game. And in the exhaustion and dehydration of it all, we start to see illusions of what may be that ever-fleeting hope that things will change for the better. Suddenly, obliquely, forcibly, however it happens, we want it to. Only closure on whether Valve will let this game live in suffering or die quietly will stymie any expectations going further, and while I hope for the best, I won't be holding my breath like the rest. And ultimately, would TF2 going the way of the dodo be that cataclysmic, given that it isn't the first of many a multiplayer title that has come and gone once it's hit past its prime? Even in the nature of this campaign, people merely want a clarification as to if Valve would meaningfully change TF2 for the better or let it stew in the abscess of bots. They've long given up on the prospect that TF2 will be regularly updated like its heyday in 2012, so really, this campaign is the swan song to TF2's continued longevity more so than a means to revitalize it. And I think Valve feeding people false promise that this game is still well looked after is more irresponsible than pulling the plug, like letting an old dog suffer in age because it hurts too much to put it down. Is it any wonder why people still hold on to a fleeting possibility at this stage of grief? Valve has cultivated this mentality whether deliberately or otherwise, and they need to answer for themselves for taking advantage of it by sitting on their hands content. Nothing short of complete admission and administration of this problem from them will convince me TF2 will change, and if Valve has left it behind, perhaps, maybe we should too.